You need to have a solid base when you're drawing the head. The foundation is the most important part of the head. A lot of people, they sort of see the features of the head as 2D symbols, like the symbol for an eyeball, like this. And they're flattening out the image in a unflattering way. So we want to always be remembering things as 3D objects that have depth, that exist within a specific space, right? And have relationships with each other. So the first most important part for drawing the head is to have a solid base, the foundation, and to avoid the details. So how do we kind of start off with all of that? The foundations of the head, we're going off with the sphere first. And then you have your crosshair, right? All of this is basic. You have your cross, you have your wrapping lines to sort of help sell you the three-dimensional form of the head. And then you want to chop off the sides because the human skull is not perfectly round. It has flatness on the edges. And then you can drop the midline to find the jaw, like this. And then you have your ear line, which is flat. Remember that this is a flat plane. This area here drops down like this. So we put that down like this, and then we shape up the jawline. Right? All of this is pretty straightforward, but then we start moving into the next steps, which is we start wanting to bring out the neck and have the neck anchor the body in such a way. So now that you have this sort of base, right? You can put these bases. You want to get good at drawing these and be able to put them out very, very easily, very, very solidly, like making sure that they're all nice and three-dimensional feeling, and in many, many different angles, because this is going to be where you put all of your features. So what are these features? Let's map out the standard proportions. So if we have something like this line right over here, this would be the eyebrow line. Not the eyes will go under. So this is where the brow is. You have the forehead, and then it's going to cut in like that. We want to figure out the nose bridge. So this is where this kind of comes out. We can have the glabella dropping in like this. This part, if we're looking at it from a 2D like side view, it'll drop out, drop in, like cut in, and then cut back out like this, like that. So we're going to capture that by putting in the indent for the glabella. We'll have a little bit of that nose bridge dropping out like this. You also want to mark out somewhere around halfway where the base of the nose is. The tip of the nose will be a little bit higher than the base, and then it'll drop out like this. Right? I normally would probably map it out around here where the jawline starts, or where the mandible cuts in. And then you want to find the mouth. I like bringing the mouth up a little bit higher. That's more just my habit. And then you want to make sure that you have space for the chin, like so. Once you kind of have these sorts of placements set up, then we can start bringing in the eye sockets. And notice eye sockets, not eyeballs, or not the eyes themselves, because you want to map out from big to small and bring in your knowledge of the skull, right? The eye sockets are over here. The eyeballs are going to be like a lot smaller on the inside, and then the eyelids, all of that's going to be, like bringing in, going from big to small, big to small. But the eye sockets are important because you want to be able to map out the face three-dimensionally. And then you can bring out all of the little features. And remember, this is where, it's a huge knowledge check, because you want to remember the forms of all of the different features and how to draw each feature on their own. So like the mouth form versus the nose form, right? Having three-dimensionality in all of them in some kind of way. The side plane, the septum, the wing of the nose, all of that fun stuff. So you can have all of that kind of be applied once you've figured out the main overall placement of everything. Kind of like that. And then once you have stuff mapped out, then you can easily start to like push and pull certain features to try to build out and find a nice balance of proportion. The next part of the foundation is once you kind of are able to master like the front angle, the side angle, and the 3/4. The 3/4 is pretty important because it shows a lot of the three-dimensionality. You want to start practicing the challenging angles like ASAP, just so that you have them in your head. So if we have like a looking up kind of angle, there's things that you want to keep in mind, like the underside of the jaw. So this would be something like a worm's eye view, like you're a worm and you're looking up at the person. We can definitely bring out the features and making sure that we're tilting everything so that way we're seeing the underside of things. A lot of the time, people are changing the angle and they think that it's about like foreshortening, that it's just about like, oh yeah, that means the top of the head is smaller than the bottom of the head, but they're not actually twisting and bending the forms. So you want to make sure that even the features like the nose and the eyes are being tilted up and we're seeing the bottoms of all of the features. And we have a little bit of the features blocking each other. And then we have the mouth like so, right? The bottom. And then we have the bottom of the jawline like that. For the other challenging angle, which is the bird's eye view or the high angle, we want to be able to look at it. Do I have any? Kind of like this one, but I can push it even more. So for like a more higher angle, we want to follow the same process, always have a similar process when you're working, so that way, you know how things go, you know the steps, and your process is different than anyone else's process, so that's why it's all dependent on whatever flows well for you. So for me, I like putting out the ball and finding the top of the head. So this would be kind of like the big top base of the head, and you can like kind of stick a ball through it or stick a stick through it, and you can see it come out from the other side, kind of have that sense. From then on, you can kind of find this is the brow ridge for me, and I'm going to bring the jawline down, but because of the foreshortening, it's going to get like shortened a lot, like so, like that. And you can see now that this is starting to look good. Now this is where people can start to mess up, where they start to put in the features and they start thinking of symbols rather than the actual forms. And by what I mean by that is that they start putting in the eyes like this, and then they start putting in the nose, and then they start stretching it out and flattening it out, rather than actually having 3D forms bent and twisted and placed onto the front of the face, the mask of the face. So because this brow ridge is really low down and we're having at such a high angle, and we know that the head, the side profile of the head has this kind of topography, right? If we're looking at it from here, the eyes are going to be covered by the brow ridge because the eyes are in here. So, especially if it's tilted away from us, I'm going to basically just showcase a gap for the eyes rather than actually putting in the eyes. Or maybe just a little bit of the bottom eyelid, like so. But the main feature to sell it would be having the nose protruding out like this, because this nose is a 3D form that comes out. And really rein it in. This is kind of like, okay, let's go fast, and let's bring out the neck so that we can kind of anchor everything down. Here is the eye sockets. Here is the nose being protruded out like so. The mouth, brow line, side of the head, cutting down to the side of the cheek, brow, eye, down here, like so. Top of the head, brow hairline right over here, back of the head, like so. You can even have the ears start popping in to try to build out the faces, to build out the features, like so. And then same thing, a nicely done fast high angle view where it's like here. You can have the bottom of the jaw kind of placed already. You have this, we have the brow, or we have the glabella, the brow ridge dropping down to where the bridge of the nose would be. You can try to find the bottom of the nose, like right here. It'll pop out like so. The eyes, just trying to find placements of things, and then slowly build out all of the forms. I didn't really like this drawing. My ego didn't, I think it was pretty bad. So to soothe my ego, I redid it and just paid a little bit more attention to the forms and everything. So this is kind of like my take two of everything. But you can kind of see the concept being put into play. So then how do you actually go into more stylized characters and stylized ideas? Well, it's just changing up the proportions. So we already have the base proportions set up. We have the ball. We have it stretched down like so. We have the head in this kind of a fashion. Drop it down like this. This could be generic standard. But then if we want to stylize it, like say if we want to draw anime, we'll push the head to be bigger. We'll have the same build-up of everything, except this time we're going to have the jaw be a lot smaller and a lot more pointed. Have the cranium be a lot bigger, like this, and then the eye sockets are going to be a lot bigger, like so. The nose can be a bit smaller, and the mouth would also be smaller, like so. And we can see that a lot of the same ideas are in place. It's just changing proportions. And then if you want to go even more silly with it, if you want to be a little bit more freaky with it, you can go even smaller on everything, right? And then that's how you get to the chibi form of everything. You just start slimming everything down. So that's stylization, right? We take this and we start to modify it and simplify the shapes into something a little bit more distinct, a little bit more stylized.